Welcome back, everybody. Welcome for another episode of Flesh and Blood in the Budget. So, last week we reached our 8th finals in a row, and we lost our third finals. We lost against Florian, a rematch from 2 weeks ago. That was a bit feels bad. Really want to win that one, but it feels really hard. Like, it feels like some cards are missing, like the Command Conquerors are missing, especially against Florian that plays like 90 reacts. Sometimes just hit him with one Command and Conquer, and he loses like the value from the D react, or he needs to block like awkwardly. Um, Tuning is okay. Sometimes it's just like one extra value every 3 turns. Maybe that's something we need, but I don't really know. We also defeated the Syndra that kicked our ass a couple of episodes ago. It was really funny because he was shit talking so much, and at the end he just lost that way the game. I feel really confident in the Syndra matchup right now. So we have enough decent disruption in the form of erase faces, and the Siren's life gain is really good. On top of that, the 90 reacts we are running help a lot into just blocking the breakpoints. And the Calming Breezes have been MVPs in the latest couple of episodes. Let's see how this episode goes against maybe some new heroes. Yeah, who knows? See. Last week we didn't pull nothing special from our entry packs, just the Redless Bone and Pinion Sentry. But we got a donation from our friend Leonel. We got his winner pack donated, and we pulled a Chowder in Marvel. Since it was a donation, I'm only going to be counting half of the value of the card as like for the budget, since we didn't earn it. So that's why I'm just going to be counting the half. So for this week's changes, I'm going to be supplementing the 100 wins we got last week. Going to be changing one of the open centers. It's a combo card, cost 2. I just want to keep more combos in deck, so I'm going to be changing one open center for one Noise of Eternity. Just helping the 100 wins package we got last week. I could, in theory, buy all 3 right now, but I don't want to spend that much money at the moment since we are still saving for the ProQuest. After this purchase, I'm still like 10 euros away to get into the ProQuest, and we'll be netting at least 2 euros from this week. But we will need like some nice pulls from our packs in order to buy like the other 2 Winds of Eternity and also the last Amnesia I was looking for. And maybe Super Slam has something cool on the common, so who knows, maybe we can also get some new cool stuff in Super Slam. But yeah, see you at games.
Kein Link, kein Cash. Kein Link, kein Cash.
This week's quote-unquote game 1 is going to be against Valda. Valda is a match that we already had last time. So as we know, Valda has some dominate attacks and punishes us for drawing. But luckily for us, we're not drawing that many cards besides with cards like Legacy of Ikaru. Meaning Balda doesn't gain that much value from her effect. It gains her 1 Seismic Surge whenever I draw. And of course it's going to be my sweep against Valda. The equipments we have, swapping the Kitty equipment for the Blazing Joroi, since now we don't have it anymore. And we're going to be playing a full 9 D-Reacts, because if Valda gets dominate, I want to stop it. I'm probably thinking of playing the Winds of Eternity for next time in this matchup, since sometimes I have like more tempo that I would like, and the Winds of Eternity can help with that in the matchup. But yeah, see you in the game. Hello everyone, and welcome to another game. This is going to be the second game of the Armory, but only the first game for us, since we actually got the bye in the first round. And yeah, now we're going to have only 2 games for this episode, so yeah, some episodes have 4 or have 3, but this one's going to have 2, unfortunately enough. Yeah, the Balda is the same Balda I played against last time. This is a bit of a better game than last time, I think.
The Balda at least managed to do some things without spoiling the game. But yeah, let's get right into the game. Alright, so Balda wins the die roll and decides to go first. Since Balda can't set up, it can be a little bit scary. If she starts with something like a promising terrain into a ley line, she has then 4 seismic surges, meaning she has a dominant for next turn. But I was lucky enough that she only made a seismic surge and pass, and my hand was okay. So I had one extender in the form of the blue Seek Vengeance, so I didn't beat myself that much, and I finished with the Amnesia. As we learned last time, Amnesia is actually decent against Valda, since some cards require to see a seismic surge, meaning if we hit with the Amnesia and the cards need to see a seismic surge, they just won't trigger. It seems Valda didn't draw great and just ended up blocking with 3 cards and swinging Titan's Fist as in classic garden form. I didn't draw too well as well. Here's where I see how the 100 wins can be pretty useful in this matchup, since sometimes if I can keep like 3 cards, that's when I push damage. I just block with a favor scene to try to fix my next turn and swing with the Scar for Scar without go again, since we are 2 life ahead and I didn't have like a better attack. And the Balladus blocks 5. I am fairly happy that I get a pommel of that and use the sigil I had in my hand. And so that's why I didn't beat myself, but it wasn't as well a great turn. I could have easily pushed like at least 2 more damage if I had like a better attack. So now I have tempo again, since Valda only plays a promising terrain and pitches a spinal crush into a seismic surge, but now he gets 2 spinal surges. um, so the promising terrain is a really good card in my opinion against Valda, since if Valda draws something that creates seismics in my turn, then Valda is going to be able to fully utilize the trigger from the promising terrain. Even if Valda plays like the card that makes 3 seismics on instant on response to the trigger of the promising terrain, then Valda gains the full value from the promising terrain. So the card is honestly pretty good. It's one of the best cards I think from the new cards. So I swing with the Sick Vengeance. I really want to flick here, but I know that Valda has Flexors, and the Flexors are really powerful, to be honest. It's a card that allows me to never activate my Okana Scar Up, since a Flexors and a D-React always block cleanly for 6. That's like a bit problematic. And luckily for Valda, Valda has the Crash and Bash, making a Seismic. So now Valda has 4 Seismics, being able to fully trigger the promising terrain. And also pretty important now that I come with a race phase, because seismic surges say your next guard attack, meaning if I hit with the race phase, the seismic surges won't have an effect. For seismics, one of the better plays Vala can do is like throw a chokeslam or a debilitate, and that's exactly what happens. Chokeslam met my way, but I had a D-React ready in the arsenal. Since I talk about it, I like D-Reacts in this matchup exactly for these cases where I can just easily block the chokeslam. But if I have like a Gorgon card, Chokeland can also be outplayed if I buff my Edge of Autumn instead of like my attack. If I come like Scar for Scar into Edge of Autumn for 2, then I outplay the Chokeslam. And here's where I see like the biggest problem for Gardens. Like he did so much in order to get the Seismics and swing the Dominated Chokeslam. And at the end, I only took 1 damage since I have the React, and my follow back is like 1 into 5 into 6, meaning I deal 12 damage with 3 cards, while he spent like all the time and effort just trying to push an 8 dominate, and he only got 1 damage through. And now I start getting his equipment. So something important is the globes of Iron Will, the guns of Iron Will, those prevents the Okana Scarab's buff. So I also need to be a bit careful with that. Now he gets an aftershock. I have D-React in my hand, so I decided to take the full aftershock just to set up the D-React, and then I will have like also lower life, meaning if I draw a Scar for the future. Now this turn feels like a little bit feels bad, since I had the D-React in Arsenal, didn't really want to use it. I ended up blocking the hammer with two blocks that are red, so that's some loss of damage in my deck. Um, meaning I mean, I had still the direct, so as long as I can keep pushing damage, it's kind of fine. Even though I'm losing like two red cards only for four value, it's honestly not that great. And my follow up is like the other erase phase, and but sadly this one couldn't get like any value, and my opponent is still like on the back foot, just making a seismic and passing a turn. But hey, at least now the Scarf of Scars are online, right? So this is I would call it interesting follow up of turns. Uh, so I bricked the one turn and I just Arsenal and played sigils, and then I pass. My opponent attacked with the hammer. I blocked with the direct and hammer I had in my arsenal. So this is funny because it is like a couple of turns where something happens, I react to that, and then I get punished for reacting. Meaning I didn't block with the direct last time, and that's why I ended up blocking for my negative value with some cards. And then because of that, I block with that D-React now. And then as we can see later turns, also, and then I block with that D-React especially because I was pretty sure I was going to be able to strip most of the cards from my opponent. But at the end, my opponent came with a dominated put him their place. So meaning I got punished by blocking with that D-React, and that was honestly pretty feels bad since now I need to give like most of my equipments just to not give him like the extra seismic surges from the put him in their place. And I'm honestly not sure what's like the correct play because I feel like I got punished by every single play I did, especially now since I thought if I could strip most of the cards from my opponent, then he wouldn't be able to do like anything in his turn. After the last couple of turns, I managed to get a comfy life lead, and I don't plan on losing it. I played this Bittering Thorns only for the damage. I wanted to try to strip his last equipment, since I didn't really need the combo for the Neck Vengeance. And since the Neck Vengeance came for 8, I guess I got a bit greedy at that moment because in hindsight, um, he could have easily had like the 5 block D react or a D-React and activate the flexors and put me like a bad position. But yeah, I got like just greedy and pushed the damage. And his turn was like another promising terrain. As I mentioned before, the promising terrains are really nice if he gets like the instant in the next turn, because then he can fully activate the effect of the promising terrain, getting like 4 seismics, drawing a card, and getting life. But yeah, after that, the game just enters like again like a stalemate, me throwing a lot of damage and he just blocking until he gets like this turn of the seismic eruption, the Lee line, and I was I wasn't prepared just as like the last time. So I've learned most of the powerful Balda turns come from out of nowhere. Now this turn Balda comes with another put in their place, dominated. I honestly wasn't expecting that. So well, I am far ahead in life. I don't really want to give Balda like a comeback potential, since if this put in their place, basically gives Balda like 3 more seismic surges. And I block with this sink below. I declined the sink because I knew I was like close to close to my pitch deck, and I haven't seen my second last ditch effort, and that's a card like I want to keep in my deck, and I just risk it to see what I drew. And at the end of the put in their place, I ended up drawing like 3 red cards, and that was previous bad since I couldn't really play with the cards. And at the end, I just threw my Edge of Autumn into the Flusterfist. I think probably in hindsight, stacking the Neck Vengeance in my hand would have been like better for late game. But hindsight's 2020, and after that, just like a Spinal Crush that gets easily blocked, and I played the Neck Vengeance from my hands. And right there, I'm just already in the position where I honestly say I would say I already won, since most of like the power cards from Valda are already out, and we're entering now in like the pitch deck moments. And if it gets like way too late in the game, I'm going to be winning anyway with my anti-fatigue tags. Now this turn I saw an opportunity. I started swinging with the Edge of Autumn and crack my Pawns in Paws. And I used the rare combo line that we have, I think, never used right now, meaning the Pouncing Chi. I come in for 2, and my opponent used the flexors on the first attack, meaning now he with one card he was able to block like 3 attacks, and I tried to be sneaky here using my Okana Scar Wraps on the Pouncing Chi, since now it has +1, and unless my opponent has like the react to commit full card, he would die on that spot. Otherwise, I just swing with the flying kick I have in my hand, and he also dead. So that's like a checkmate situation. So against Syndra is a matchup we had a lot of times. It has gone either way, but what we know about Syndra is Syndra does a lot of things and evasive damage. And disruption is pretty good against Syndra, since if Syndra can play 4-card hands, then she gets exponentially weaker. And something that I've learned about my matches against Syndra is that Wrath of Retribution is a card that turns the scales, since sometimes it's like a 0 for 11, and that is usually good enough to finish the game. This is going to be the sideboard against Syndra. The Blazing Droid doing a lot of work, and as well as the Calming Breezes. I've actually been thinking even to play Calming Breezes in a constructed deck, since they've been performing so good against Syndra. But yeah, nothing's changed at all except for like the Winds of Eternity that was our audition for this week. So yeah, let's go right to the game. So now the round 2/3 against Syndra. This is against my friend Muddy. I played him the last couple of videos, so and he is thesis as always. Funny enough, he finished his game fast, his game round 1, and we played while waiting for the round 2 to start. And I clapped him, so he was pretty tilted, and he wanted to revenge this game. And yeah, so let's stay tuned to see how that went. So he starts giving me a free mulligan, trying to push some damage with the flick and some 4 breakpoints, but I had like the react and the sirens, meaning I got 0 damage out of the transaction. But it wasn't that great since I drew like a scar for scar. In that case, I would have wished I had the extra damage. And my turn was rather meek, just Edge of Autumn into Blue Sirens, healing 1 and pushing 6 damage. And he gets to keep the full 5 cards, so that's not good as we know. So the turns just starts with the classic Brown Necklaw into a Wrath Hedgehog, as the Armada calls it. I used the Column Breeze at this moment on the third attack. Was probably a misplay from him, like swinging the weapon at that attack, since at that point I know I can just block it with my Column Breeze and he won't get like any benefit out of it. Maybe he just starts swinging with the kunai into kunai into Brand, then he would have like a better chance of drawing off Mask or something else, and he had just ends with a fire without the effect, so just pushing some damage. And I managed to use the scar for scar I got, plus another one I found to push 9 damage, and 2 cards and damage is pretty good. So this is a play that's a little bit of high risk, high reward. When he attacks with the kunai, I block it with my pouncing paws. Sometimes Syndra needs like the resource from chest, and if Syndra has like no other weapon to flick, meaning sometimes if I just block the one, Syndra can't get the resource and can play like a 1 cost extender. That can be like pretty bad for Syndra, but Syndra had this time like a 3 go again. And my hand wasn't looking great. I know Syndra wasn't going to be drawing off the masks this turn. And probably like a misplay from my was blocking 5 here instead of like throwing 6 damage and healing 1. Since I am essentially only blocking 3, especially because if I count like the healing, some value math, like, so at this point I only got like 4 value of the block instead of having the full 7 value that I could have gotten with the sirens. But I wasn't sure if like I was thinking about using the sirens to block as well, but since like this much of loyalty had go against since he created a fealty, so I wasn't sure, but my opponent just ended up arsenaling, and I just swing my Edge of Autumn and pass. And now I got another hand, but I can do nothing. So with 1 blue, this hand would have been at least 9 offensive value and like 5 defensive value, depending on what I would have drawn. On top of that, I didn't have like a combo card to use the flick flag from my arsenal, so my only option was like to block, and my next turn's option was also only to block, since I had like a lot of hands where I'm honestly not drawing like playable things. And funnily enough, like the hand after that was also like a hand I couldn't realistically play. So at this point, I had like four hands where I couldn't play. And if you're doing that against like an aggro deck, you are way behind. There's honestly not that much comeback from that. So I like Flesh and Blood in the sense that you can come back from like one bad hand. Uh, but you can't really come back if you have like a lot of bad hands. Like, because if you are playing against an aggro deck, you just get out tempo if you have a lot of bad hands, and if you're playing like against some more defensive deck, there is some point where if you're only blocking because you have bad hands, then you would eventually get fatigued because you are just blocking, not pushing like a lot of damage. So I started this break being 7 life ahead, and I ended up being 2 life behind uh, before I drew like an actually playable hand. And now that I converted the defensive value from my decent hand after 4 turns of breaking, I am 7 life um, below my opponent, and that's honestly really hard position to be, especially since my opponent has like tempo. And but now I just come with the neck vengeance, and I get the arsenal from my opponent, and I also push some damage and almost equalize the life. But sadly, my opponent has like a really good turn after that, especially since it has like the Oath of Loyalty with 3 fields ready. Those are, I think, some of the most potent turns from Syndra. And my hand isn't that great as well, since I have like not really good blocking things. I have like a full a full red hand. Sorry, I have 3 cards in hand that only block for 2, and 1 blue that I need to play from my arsenal. Meaning my defensive value is just 6, so I am basically almost dead at this point. Just push the raise phase, but my opponent has like still some damage and some go again. The next turn, I'm able to actually to threaten lethal, but couldn't do that much since my opponent still has some equipments, and I just die to the Wrath of Retribution draw next turn. It's honestly really hard to play the game when 5 turns I have just hands that don't really play that well. But at least it's cool for that you get to see like that some choke points that they can have. Like as mentioned, one of the comments a couple of episodes ago, uh, I want to minimize the amount of 2 blocks in the deck, especially because things like that can happen. And if the 2 blocks are also like cost 2, then they get even worse. Especially since I can really use them and I can really block with them as well, such as the sirens. Even though the sirens is like a 3 block, quote unquote. But yeah, so I think if we have like one less turn of breaking this game, I will be able to close it in my favor. But the amount of breaking was just way too much. And here we can see Matti just being extremely happy that he beat my ass after losing earlier today. Yeah, it's always funny like how he really wants to beat this deck. Yeah, cheers, Matty. See you next week probably.
So another week, another finals loss. Sadly, went 1-1. Not the best, not the worst. I mean, it could have honestly went way worse at the Armory. But yeah, we still have 4 more weeks to go. I wonder how far can the deck go, or maybe if we pull like a random CNC from a haunted pack, who knows? Yeah. For the season 2, I am starting to having some thoughts about it. I want to ask my viewers what they want to look. I don't know if they are more interested into a Pleiades deck, an Arachne Sleep Through the Cracks, or a Rhinar. So I'm going to be leaving a poll for my viewers to answer to that. And I also want to do like a special episode where I answer all the questions my viewers give me. So in generally, I have been getting a lot of questions in the comments. So if you just do more questions, I will be gladly to answer them. And yeah, see you next week.